Hello everybody, my name's Vic Gilgis and I'm here to give you a new podcast, episode 31, entitled, Is Your Life As Good As It Gets? By the way, as regards my name, my surname, Gilgis, so you can remember, it's spelt as in gorgeous. Well, I know I'm gorgeous, but it's Gilgis, G-I-L, but gorgeous, yeah, Gilgis. Okay. Right, so I'm chuffed about what I'm doing today, and as I've said, I always do this to try and help you with your well-being and mine as well, because that's what it does when we go through any process like this that focuses on, for want of a better word, what it's all about, our thriving, our love, our getting on, and being okay with everything. That's what it's about, because everything is okay. There's only this that can make it not okay. 2 days ago, it's Thursday today, sorry, this was Monday. I went to a well-being group, and the well-being group, the facilitator, the leader of the group, was playing a TED Talk. It lasted about half an hour. I'm not going to describe what TED Talks are, but if you put in TED Talk in your computer, there's some brilliant material there about all sorts of things, and they are very good talks, very good talks. And it was used at the resource centre to help people in the group. And this particular TED Talk was about how to look after yourself, when you're depressed. In other words, it was about how laundry can get on top of you, that you can't be bothered to cook, how you can worry about the house being untidy, and just things building up in general. And it was household tips from people who have suffered from depression, not being able to get on top of things, and their top 10 tips, as it were, to get how to survive. And it was brilliant. There was some really good stuff. And afterwards, there was a discussion, mostly useful. But I will say that there was one or two people there that they didn't seem to get round to listening to the tips or being in alignment with the advice that was being given. And I can understand why, because what they were saying was, I am too depressed to be even able to think about tidying my room or cooking myself some food, etc., etc. And I can relate to that. And, the only thing I could say there was, sometimes all I could do was sit in bed with a cup of tea, and sometimes I couldn't even be bothered to make myself a cup of tea. But I was alive, although I didn't feel as if I wanted to be alive. So I can understand the whole thing. But what was coming across to me from these people in the group, certain people in the group, was that they were in a state of overwhelm with their thoughts. They were in a state of fear with their thoughts. In other words, one person was relating to how they dreaded the alarm going off because of the things that they had to do, or they thought about they had to do during the day. And so there was one or two comments made about, well, why worry about that? Because, if you're depressed, you don't have to do these things. Why are you letting this worry you? Well, that happens. When I sat in bed with my cup of tea, sometimes even thinking, why can't I be bothered to make a cup of tea? Why am I not bothered about getting out of bed? It is overwhelm when you kind of want to then go into your thoughts. And this is the problem, going into thought and thinking, oh dear, what's the day going to bring? I can't face the day. These are all fears. These are, it's overwhelm, as I've mentioned. And it's true, it's real. And so it's no good saying, well, people stop moaning and groaning about your situation because, You don't have to get out of bed necessarily. So, just get on with your life. It's easier said than done. And the intention of this podcast is to address some of these problems. So, what was mentioned in the podcast, in the TED Talk, was that it was suggested that people have neutral thoughts about things. In other words, when you're thinking, oh, my laundry pile is very high, this is, I can't be bothered to go out to the shops, or I've got no money to go out to the shops. Keep a neutral thought. Well, I would say that is good advice, to keep neutral thoughts. In other words, not to have overwhelmed thoughts or fearful thoughts or depressing thoughts or thoughts of I can't do this or I can't do that or I'm not. In other words, all those value-laden thoughts that they say we shouldn't put labels on. But unless you understand or unless there is an understanding of what it is about that we're talking, what do we mean by thought? People just can't come to say, oh, I'll have a neutral thought about that. And I thought that was a fault of the TED Talk, is that, it's like good advice when you don't understand the logic or the insightfulness behind that. And it was an insightful thing to say, have a neutral thought. But, how do you do that? What is that? What do you mean? Do you really understand what that means? So I think that nobody in the group was questioning that thought might be the problem. What they were seeing as the problem was, the problem being how to have the skills to keep a tidier house or to cook better or more efficiently. And what I'm banging on about here is that, no, that's not the problem. The problem is the thoughts about all this. And if you can sort that out and understand what's going on there, then what follows is natural. What follows is you're being able to cope because you don't have all these thoughts that are blocking you from doing it in the first place. Now, I have made a suggestion, and I don't know how well it went down with the group, but I said, well, what if you just sit up in bed with your cup of tea, provided that you can do that, and just be like an animal? In other words, an animal probably doesn't think a lot in terms of the way we think psychologically about, oh, this is horrible and that's horrible. An animal just tends to its needs. If it's hungry, it tries to get some food. If it wants to go to the loo, it goes to the loo. And so what I was saying there was that if you go back to going, not with this, but just going with being what is, being in yourself, being with your presence, like an animal presence, then you'll know what to do, because your body will tell you what to do. It's not your brain that needs to tell you to go to the toilet or to quench your thirst. You know what to do. And so when you are in that state of being, animalistic, I suppose, getting back to basics, in other words, being not in your thoughts, but in your presence, just being there, just being with your awareness, being with your presence again, as I've said, what you are. So not referring to this, referring to your energy, your presence. You'll know what to do. You've always known what to do. It tells you what to do anyway. So in that moment, I think you can always say to yourself, well, am I okay now? Yeah, there's not a chuck coming at you in your bedroom. There is not wild animals pouncing on you. There is not, well, if this hunger is in abeyance, well, you'll go and get something to eat, perhaps. Or if you're thirsty, you'll go and get something to eat, to drink. Or if you need to go to the toilet, you go to the toilet. Simple as that. But when you start with the rumour mill going, the fear mill, the overwhelm mill, then what that is doing is just bringing on the suffering, because that, in your just oneness with yourself, that doesn't have to be there. Now, Jamie Smart, brilliant author, wrote a book called Clarity. Would recommend it. And in that book, he had a formula. And the formula is clarity equals capacity minus contamination. Right. Now, clarity means just, well, what it says is that you are clear about what to do. There is no confusion. You are confident about what to do because there is no confusion. The way is clear. And he says it's equal to capacity. Now, we all have a different capacity. In mental health sense, it means, well, have you got capacity or a diminished capacity? But capacity, I hope I've got capacity with what I'm doing now, and I'm sure that you have, if you're listening to me, you've got capacity. I was once told when I was a little kid, because I was told I was remedial. In other words, I had diminished capacity. And so if I'd have taken that thought seriously, well, I don't know what would have happened. But so I certainly don't worry about capacity, because I think if we can kind of go and make a cup of tea and go to the toilet on our own, and which some people can't, we have got capacity. What is the bugbear is contamination. So clarity, in Jamie Smart's formula, in his book called Clarity, clarity equals capacity minus contamination. And simply put, what is meant by contamination is thought. Negative thoughts, bad thoughts, upsetting thoughts, worry thoughts, putting down thoughts, low self-esteem thoughts, jealousy thoughts, hatred thoughts, fighting talk thoughts, separateness thoughts, our ego, oh, I'm not like that, or I should be like that. Our conditioning thoughts, what our parents might have told us, etc., etc. That is contamination, because it's just thought, which can be used, or we can use it against ourselves, our worst critic, which is the mind, our thoughts, against us. So I'm going to look at the fact that we all have a loss of clarity because of contamination. And so that's what I meant in the first place, is that, what will sort out in the TED Talk, the laundry problem or the cooking problem and all the rest of it, is what gets in the way is contamination, is worry thoughts about that, is overwhelmed thoughts about that, or dislike thoughts about that. I don't want to do any cooking, I don't want to do any washing, and etc., etc. These are thoughts, and they are not necessarily true. Okay, so we're going to deal with some truth here, and the truth is that clarity does exist because that's what we're built of. We are innately made of clarity. Now, let me just explain a little bit more what I mean by that, because I'm talking here about the gift that we've been given, all of us that are created, the gift of mind, consciousness and thought, which is often referred to as the three principles. Now, in episode 1, which I think was called Changing Your Life, I talked about the three principles in, I suppose, some depth, because I can't remember. If you want to kind of go into that in a bit more depth, then that first episode on Changing Your Life, it talks about the three principles of mind, consciousness and thought. But they're quite simple. There's nothing complicated about this. Mind is the intelligent energy that runs through our body. We've all got it. We could call it awareness. It's in the now. It's always in the now. It was there when we were born, before we got the terrible twos of an ego developing in us. So mind is this gift of our creation. Mind, consciousness, thought. Consciousness. Consciousness is again, that gift of that we can be aware of what comes within our periphery, what comes into our life, what we see, hear, taste, feel, touch, think. We are aware. We have consciousness. We're just alive. And so that is a gift, that we know what passes in front of us. And of course, talking about contamination, as soon as we start putting labels to what appear in front of us, I don't like that, or this is wrong, or that shouldn't be there, that's when we start getting upset. But let's just look at the pure gift that we've been given, as I say, of mind, which is intelligent energy, and the fact that we are always aware. Aware all the time. So the third one, which is thought, is the fact that we have this gift of creation that we're given of thought, that we can think, because we have the ability of thought. Now, that doesn't mean a particular thought. It's the ability of thought, which we're gifted with. And it is the most powerful thing in the world, because everything you see, hear, smell, touch, is all the result of somebody's thoughts, of your thoughts, my thoughts, people that have come before us. So that's the powerfulness of thoughts, symphonies, but also wars. So what I'm saying is the ability of thought is there. We've got that gift and we can use it for good or for bad. But when we're looking at what Jamie Smart said as contamination, it's when we believe the bad thoughts that come through the sky of thought. And I've mentioned this before. Thought is like a sky. We have the ability to things to come in and out that sky. But when we focus on the bad weather, we focus on what we don't like coming through the sky, dragons, clouds, thunder, lightning, then we might get upset. But that is not who we are. We have the ability of thought. So it is up to us. We have the choice to kind of dwell on contaminated thoughts or not. You know, we can do all the muddling and meddling and maudling, which, a bored mind can often come up with, which can only upset us. We don't have to be like that, because that is not who we are. We are these three basic things. This gift that we were given when we were created, mind, consciousness and thought. And they are so powerful that we don't have to be bothered about much. So, we can even be clever enough to notice that when a bad thought passes through our ability to think, we can spot it and say, do I go there? Do I follow it? Do I hold on to it? Do I make it more solid? No, we don't have to do that. We all do, of course. We all slip and we forget who we really are. And who we really are is just presence. Just presence in that energy of life. Mind, consciousness and thought. And they are not three separate things. They are all joined together. They are one. So, talking about TED Talks, Michael Neal, I've mentioned Michael Neal before. Brilliant. Michael Neal did a TED Talk ages ago. Some years ago, I think now. And it was called, from my memory, Why Aren't We Awesomer? Brilliant title. Why Aren't We Awesomer? Now, my spell check does not like awesomer. It doesn't think it's a word. But I think that Michael Neal was brilliant when he used that word awesomer. Why aren't we awesomer? Because what he was saying was, and look, I'm just paraphrasing here because I haven't looked at that thing. I think it was years ago. So all I remember is the impact it had on me. And what Michael Neal was really saying, with this gifts of mind, consciousness and thought, we've got everything we need for our confidence, for our boldness, for our lovingness, for our everything. to be able to help others, to care for others, to be able to look after ourselves. We've got all the basic equipment we need because it's built inside. Mind, consciousness and thought. It doesn't get any simpler than that. It can't be broken down any simpler than that. It never has been broken down simpler than that. Since Sydney Banks came up with that as a revelation, as an insight. And as he said, if I can have an insight as an ex-welder, anybody can have an insight. And we can, because we've been given that gift, mind, consciousness and thought. It's brilliant. And when we are not contaminated by all this thinking, thoughts, and that can go through our ability to think, it can stymie all that lot. It can damp it down. And that's why we can never get out of bed, or we can never do anything properly, because we are worried about our self-esteem, we are worried about how we look, we are worried that we can't be able, etc., etc. Well, no, we've got all this stuff. We've got the gear, because it's there within us. It's innate, and it's love. It's there, like it's our life. It's life energy. So when he said, why can't we be more awesomer? What I think he was saying was, well, with all that gear, it's amazing that we are not more awesomer. So when we see ourselves as wretches or kind of not awesome at all, but useless, that's not the case, because we've got the gear. We're built with it. We are awesome, and we can be awesomer all the time, because this is infinite. The possibilities that we've got to be able to do things and think about things are infinite. The only limitations that are put on this infiniteness is contamination, is worry thoughts, basically, fear thoughts, overwhelmed thoughts, as I've mentioned. So I'll go on to stress more about the title of this podcast, which is Your Life as Good as It Gets? Now, when I entered academia from industry, I stopped being a happy bunny. And so I went to see, I was recommended to see a university counsellor. In fact, I saw the boss counsellor. And I remember going in the back way because of the stigma I thought might be attached to me going for counselling. So I went in the back door, as it were. But I was surprised that when I got into the place where the counselling was done, that it was all full of other students and other staff. Half the university was there. And my main reason for going there was because I was angry. And my anger was that I felt frustrated about not being, I wanted a chair, professor, and it didn't look as if I was going to get a sniff of that. And so I felt frustrated. And that was why I was kind of angry about things. And so I went to see the counsellor, and she said to me, and I'll never forget this, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up, is because I cannot remember all the details. I mean, I was entitled to 10 free counselling sessions. I only got up to number 4 because I left. And I left because it was getting me down. Because every week, the counsellor wanted me to go into all murky stuff. Well, all contamination. That's what she wanted to deal with. All the murky stuff. What's gone on in the past, that's made you this way, etc., etc. Well, and I'm not having an attack here on counselling, because counselling can be very good. But in my case, maybe I wasn't ready for it. I don't know. But one thing she said to me that I remember was, she said to me, "This is as good as it gets." Now, that really pissed me off. Because, you see, what did she mean? I thought, you see, you never know what somebody else thinks. And I thought she meant, well, you're a young man, which I was, early 20s. You've got a good job, good university. you know, you're married, got a good wife, good house, you know, all the rest of it. So it's as good as it gets, lad. And I was like, I was boiling over with indignancy, if that's another word. But it certainly wasn't awesome to me. That I thought, you must be joking. It's not as good as it gets. To me, it's got to get even better than this. This is just the start. So don't tell me it's as good as it gets, because I'm just on the launching pad here, Mrs. Counsellor. And don't tell me it's as good as it gets. Now, you see, let me just move on from that conversation. Bless the counsellor. Because I really getting upset there about saying, was somebody saying you should be happy with your lot? And I was saying, no, I've only just started and I want more of it. Because now, and I didn't see it then, what I wanted was not what I needed. And so I had no idea. I thought that getting this chair at the university would fulfill me, etc., etc. And of course, talk about contaminated thought. Yes, I was kind of chasing after something that was not going to fulfill me in the end anyway, was not going to make me content in the end anyway. The only way in which you can get peace, right, is from these three things: mind, consciousness, and thought. Now, if you think about these three things, they are constant. They don't change. They never change. Your awareness never changes. Mind, life energy, never changes. And thought, which is always there, your ability to think, never changes. What does change is your thoughts. They can go up, they can go down, and they do go up and they do go down. And my thoughts then were, oh, well, you know, my lot at the university is not as good as it should be. So don't tell me it's as good as it gets, love. What I didn't realise was that it's always as good as it gets. In fact, it can even get better. You can be more awesomer when you look to mind, consciousness and thought, which is always constant, which has always got the wisdom, which has always got what you need. It guides. It's what it is. It's life. Now then, I'm going to look at Hafiz, 14th century Persian poet. I'm not going to, it's a long prose, so I'm just going to read selected parts of it. And just to let you know, Hafiz, there is a picture of Hafiz. I heard God laughing, renderings of Hafiz. Now, isn't it wonderful that in the 14th century, somebody must have had an Instamatic to take that picture, or at least a box brownie. I mean, it's fantastic, and that's awesome, really, when you think about it, that somebody took that picture there. I really like that. But anyway, I'll go back onto a reading, a bit of Hafiz. I love Hafiz. Like Rumi, I love Rumi. And this is called I Know the Way You Can Get. And I'm just going to read some select, because it's pages. I know the way you can get when you have not had a drink of love. Your face hardens, your sweet muscles cramp. Children become concerned about a strange look that appears in your eyes, which even begins to worry your own mirror and nose. Further on it says, oh, I know the way you can get if you have not been out drinking love. You might rip apart every sentence your friends and teachers say, looking for hidden clauses. You might weigh every word on a scale like dead fish. It's beautiful stuff, this, isn't it? So I'll go right to the end of the thing now. And this says, this is why Hafiz says, bring your cup near me, for I am a sweet old vagabond with an infinite leaking barrel of light and laughter and truth that the beloved has tied to my back. Dear one, indeed, please bring your heart near me, for all I care about is quenching your thirst for freedom. All a sane man can ever care about is giving love. Thank you for listening there, but isn't that beautiful? And, you know, just to look at some of the words there, that a barrel, an infinite, I mentioned infinite earlier, an infinite leaking barrel of light, laughter and truth that the beloved, that's our creator, the beloved has tied to my back. That, and it quenching our thirst for freedom. And we are always free because we have the capacity to be free because we've got the clarity when we're not contaminated by all this stuff that Hafiz repairs to when he says, I know the way you can get. Yeah, well, we all know the way we can get. I mean, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, what more can I say there? It's beautiful. So, just pondering on, I sleep very well. And that, when going back to the group that I referred to earlier, that listened to the TED Talk, one of the things in the group was mentioned that people didn't sleep very well. Now, we all can suffer from lack of sleep. I sleep like a baby. Not always, but mostly. And the only thing I can say about that, if it helps, is that my consciousness is clear. Not my conscience. My consciousness is clear. And what I mean about that is that as soon as we delve into any conscience we may have about stuff we may have got wrong, you know, a bad conscience or a low conscience, that again is contamination. And that's what keeps this rumour mill going. And so when you are really have a conscience in that sense, it's going to keep you up all night. We all know what's right and wrong because our consciousness lets us know. It always taps us on the shoulder. That's where the wisdom is. We don't have to go through the ins and outs because we know. No matter what we do, if we committed a sin, we can go and have that forgiven, perhaps. I don't know. Don't understand any of that. But, you know, if we are, well, we're all aware. We have all got consciousness. We know what we've done and what we haven't done. And all we do in life is use mind, consciousness and thought to try and thrive and do our best. So, let's just relax a little bit on this. And so, I'm talking here about a relaxing which is different to a meditation in a way, but similar, but it's different in the way that you're not trying to relax your thoughts so much as trying to get with your presence, which just knows, which just is. When you're in your presence, life is, well, it's now, it's okay. And it's not into the past, it's not into the future, it's just into the now, like having that cup of tea sat up in bed. So let's just have a look. So just think about the top of your head, little muscles of your scalp. Let them go, let them relax. Let them go slack. Muscles in your face, let them go slack. Your forehead, your eyes, your eyelids, your cheeks, your mouth. Just relax. Just a wonderful feeling of relaxing. Unclenching your teeth. Just letting your tongue relax in your mouth. Relaxing your tongue. Just mentally relax. Just going down through the body now. Say through your neck and shoulder muscles, into the tops of your arms, letting your tensions just drift away, just being with yourself, your presence, your real self. Down through your shoulders, tensions just drifting away, down through your elbows, down through your wrists and your hands, right the way down to the very tips of your fingers and tips of your thumbs, letting all those muscles go to relax. Just think about your breathing. Just steady breathing, slowly as you relax more and more. So you can just let any tension in your chest area simply drain away. As you think on down to your stomach muscles now, let those muscles relax. Your main thigh muscles, down through your knees, down through your shins and calves. Just allowing all those areas to relax and let go. As you think down through your ankles, through your feet, down to the very tips of your toes. All the muscles of your body beautifully relaxed and easy, very lazy. So, in that relaxed awareness, that presence that you have and that I have, you just think about what's been said about the way in which we operate, mind, consciousness and thought, that we can so easily let our thoughts overwhelm and fear us, when in actual fact we've got all the kit that we need to succeed and be confident. As Michael Neal said, why aren't we more awesomer when we've got that creative energy always there, always in the background, always constant? So why do we need to refer to that which is not constant, which is fluctuating up and down like the tides, in and out, good and bad, our thoughts about stuff? Yeah, we need thoughts, as I've said before. We need thoughts, obviously. But we know what to do when we need to know what to do, and we'll know what to say when we need to say something. But often it gets polluted by contamination. And we're all human. And that contamination can exist. But when we are aware of it, and aware that that is not the be-all and end-all, and it is not, it should be the servant of our wisdom. But often we refer to it as our intellect, our thoughts, and we think they must be correct. But no, what we really are, mind, consciousness and thought, this life energy, its intelligence, guides us. So I hope that's helpful. I hope it enables you to realise that your consciousness is always clear. There's the clarity. When your consciousness starts to focus on what is reflected in front of it, and you take that seriously, that's when the trouble can start. And so when we fall for the trick of having a bad thought, and then we have another thought about that bad thought, which just reinforces that thought in the first place, we're then processing thought, and it's just not good for you. It's like processed food. So we can always come back to realizing that that is not real. That contamination is not real. What is real is the truth, and the truth is mind, consciousness, and thought. That is what is always there. That is what's infinite. That's what contains the truth, and it lets you know. And you know it lets you know. I know, because it taps you on the shoulder. So you're always guided. I hope that's been helpful, and I hope you enjoyed the relaxation, and certainly don't operate a lathe or a knitting loom whilst you're listening to a relaxation, because if you fall into the knitting loom, then you'll get into little pieces and your maker will have to put them together. So if that happens, you'll have instant realization of or enlightenment, because you'll have to be put back together again. But, that's my daft talk. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this, and I hope it's been informative. Thank you very much.